And then we said, but did you pay her fairly? And then he said, I paid her more than she's ever made. Remember when I said earlier, I've never seen so many cowards and black men in this business? I would have to put my brother Tyler Perry in that.
Being like, yeah, daddy, like when he started all that daddy this and daddy that, and then I heard some hollering and struggling, like, yeah, I kept the phone.
If Bishop Jakes was at a Diddy party, there could only be two reasons: money or...
It's just real strange that he would be found at any kind of Diddy party or any kind of place with Diddy unless it's in a business atmosphere. So now what he's doing is he's making, man, he's making the Christians look real bad right about now.
Hey, Bishop Jakes, how are you?
What's up, man?
Man, it's so good to see you.
It's better to see you. How you doing?
Hollywood sells dreams, glittering red carpets, blinding flashes, billion-dollar studios, and the illusion that raw talent and hustle are all you need to win. But peel back that shiny cover and another story spills out. A story told by the very people who were used up and tossed aside by the same machine they helped build. And right now, those voices are louder than ever. This isn't just about Monique, even though she lit the match when she revealed how Hollywood's most powerful men tried to silence her and underpay her.
Why would we need a 50-foot bed?
I mean, TD Jakes ain't small. I'm just saying. If it's a group thing, it's a group thing. You gotta think about, you got Rick Ross, you got Khaled, we talk about heavy hitters.
What's unfolding goes way deeper than one woman's fight. It's a glimpse into a system built on control and fear. Monique's story is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Katt Williams has been dropping clues for years, hinting that the so-called power players aren't who they claim to be. He's called out Tyler Perry and Bishop T.D. Jakes, not for clout, but because he saw how far the manipulation stretches. He's never been scared to walk straight into the fire with nothing but the truth as his weapon. And he's not standing alone. Gene Deal has been ripping the mask off the music industry, exposing what really went down behind those glossy contracts and staged smiles. Jaguar Wright has put everything on the line to spill what the public was never supposed to hear about the stars Hollywood protects at all costs.
And I'm gonna lay my hands on you, Bishop, and he said that and then it's on the internet. He's doing all of this, right? And then there's a woman on the dais.
Every one of these voices got hit with smear campaigns, blackballing, and even threats. But here's the wild part. Their stories line up. The same names keep creeping back up. The same dirty tactics surface again and again. Different corners of the industry, same shady patterns. Put their testimonies side by side, and the truth becomes impossible to deny. This isn't about petty beef or messy gossip. It's about power, control, and a machine that rewards silence while destroying anyone who dares to speak out. Truth is, Tyler Perry and T.D. Jakes have built their empires on spotless, polished images.
Would have been swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? Have you gone through a time of swallowing where everything was overwhelming?
But what happens when those empires start getting hit from every angle at once? How long can they keep flashing those smiles for the cameras when the receipts are stacking higher by the day? For years, T.D. Jakes and Tyler Perry have stood in the spotlight as untouchable giants. They've been painted as the ultimate success stories, living proof that faith and hustle could break barriers. They position themselves as beacons of hope, men who built empires and inspired millions to chase greatness. But here's the twist. What happens when the very figures meant to lead by example are the ones guarding the dirtiest secrets?
Yes, thank you so much.
Well,
This is
That's exactly why voices like Jaguar Wright and Monique have shaken the entire table. They've turned the spotlight back on the so-called leaders, forcing the world to question everything those polished images really stand for. She's not whispering, and she's definitely not hiding. She's stepping up with receipts, hard proof, and a fearlessness that makes men like Perry and Jakes squirm. For years, they brushed off the critics and hid behind polished images, but now every time Monique speaks, that shine starts to crack wide open. TD Jakes isn't just a preacher anymore. He's been branded as the face of modern Black spirituality. His sermons go viral across social media, his books climb bestseller charts, his productions break into film and TV, and his services get broadcast nationwide. His empire stretches far beyond the pulpit of the Potter's house. This man has shaken hands with presidents, sat at tables with kings, and stood shoulder to shoulder with A-list celebrities. For decades, his name carried heavy weight, both in the church and out in the world. That's why when he suddenly and quietly stepped down, it didn't just raise eyebrows. It sent shockwaves through the entire industry.
Why would you find a religious man, when you know that the saints supposed to separate themselves from the sinners, and why would a religious man like himself be at a party which ain't nothing but sin that's going on, bro? Whether it's drinking, maybe fornicating, maybe, like I said, men on men, women on women. It's hard to put in perspective unless he's involving himself what is actually going on at the parties. It's hard, brother. Bro, you can't, I really don't know why, as a spiritual advisor to him, that they buddy while he got a party with him like that and be at his parties. It's got to be, maybe it's something more that meets the eye.
When someone holding that much power suddenly steps away without warning, you already know people are going to start connecting dots. And sure enough, Katt Williams, Monique, and Jaguar Wright aren't buying those polished press releases about health or new ventures. According to them, this wasn't some graceful retirement. It was a straight-up forced exit. In her own words, Bishop Jakes got pushed out before the dirt got too messy. And the mess at the center of it all? None other than the man plastered across headlines everywhere, Sean Diddy Combs. Let's rewind. Diddy's legal troubles have been stacking nonstop. Lawsuits from women, former employees, and insiders cracking open doors to years of whispered rumors. The biggest bombshell dropped when producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones filed a nearly 100-page federal lawsuit. In those pages, Jones accused Diddy of violent, abusive behavior. And what really had people buzzing was that other powerful names popped up right alongside his. Bishop Jakes wasn't a defendant, but his name still popped up. According to the lawsuit, when Cassie Ventura hit Diddy with her explosive case, Diddy went into full-on damage control. Jones claimed Diddy leaned on Bishop Jakes because Jakes had credibility, spiritual authority, and the kind of influence that could soften his public image when everything was crashing down.
I've talked to preachers and I've talked to reverends and priests, but they ain't never came to a party with me or nothing like that. So it's hard to figure that one out, bruh, without even saying, what people might be thinking. But I heard that there's supposed to be some tapes or something that's coming out real soon. And I guess we'll all really know the truth if anything's on those tapes.
And here's the thing, once your name shows up in a federal case, even indirectly, you're standing in the splash zone. The internet wasted no time doing what it does best, digging up old clips and receipts. One video that lit up the timeline showed Bishop Jakes at Diddy's 53rd birthday bash in Los Angeles. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a quick handshake and a photo op. The footage showed him mingling, laughing, and looking right at home among a sea of A-list stars dripping in luxury. Now, celebrities hit parties all the time, sure. But Diddy's parties, they've carried a notorious reputation for years. Whispers of wild scenes and indulgence that look nothing like Sunday service. So when a bishop with Jakes' stature is caught looking comfortable in that environment, people can't help but start asking the hard questions. His team scrambled fast to control the narrative. Katt Williams, executive VP of TD Jakes Enterprises, swore the bishop was only in Los Angeles for meetings and just stopped by Diddy's birthday to pay quick respects before leaving. Just a handshake, a smile, and out the door, or so they claim. But let's be real, not everyone's buying that polished spin. If you're really trying to dodge controversy, why even set foot at one of the most infamous celebrity parties of the year? And then, almost like clockwork, Bishop Jakes drops his big announcement. No scandal, no blow-up moment, just a sudden and squeaky clean step away from leadership. But the timing? Way too perfect to ignore. Right before Diddy's trial moves forward, right after Jakes' name pops up in connection with the lawsuit, right as old clips and social media receipts start resurfacing, the whole just coincidence story is a tough sell. And now, former bad boy bodyguard Gene Deal, never one to bite his tongue, has plenty to say about Bishop Jakes. Gene flat out calls out the glaring contradiction between Jakes' holy image as a spiritual leader and the questionable company he's allegedly keeping. In Gene's own words, the saints are supposed to be separated from the sinners, yet Bishop Jakes keeps popping up at the same notorious parties tied to Diddy, events Gene has described as soaked in liquor, excess, and flat-out debauchery. For a man claiming to be a shepherd of souls, Gene asks, what business does Jakes have being in those spaces unless he's either taking part in or turning a blind eye to what's happening behind closed doors? Gene says he's been to those infamous white parties in the Hamptons himself, and he's painted a chilling picture of what really went down. In the early years, secrecy ruled. Private rooms hid the chaos. But over time, the masks dropped. It got blatant. Men openly with men, women with women, and people indulging without a shred of discretion. So when a pastor with Jakes' level of influence shows up in that kind of scene, Gene says it's a massive red flag that the public can't afford to ignore. Gene's blunt take is simple. If you're truly a man of God, you shouldn't just avoid those spaces. You should be condemning them outright. And then there's the drama inside Jakes' own household. One of his sons was reportedly arrested in a Dallas park tied to shady activity, while both of his adopted sons have openly identified as part of the LGBTQ community.
You know, you got to look at a person's household, and if your household is not in order, you understand, how you gonna help somebody else get their house in order? You know, one of his sons got arrested, you know, some years ago in Dallas, you know, allegedly for being found in a park where a bunch of people that are homeless hang out and indulge in activity. And I heard his two sons, which are not his biological sons, both of them are from that LGBT community. Now, how you gonna help me straighten out my house? And to me, your house ain't in order. Not saying that something is wrong with them being and choosing that lifestyle, but something is wrong with them choosing that lifestyle, being in a household with a reverend.
Now, Gene is clear. He has no issue with people living their truth, but he questions how a pastor whose own house is tangled in scandals can present himself as the moral compass for millions. If you can't keep your own family steady, Gene asks, how can you guide anyone else? And it doesn't stop there. Gene has even hinted that tapes may soon surface, tapes that could expose even more about what really goes on behind the scenes between Jakes and the high-powered circles he's been moving in. For Gene, the picture couldn't be clearer. Bishop Jakes' holy public persona is being chipped away by private actions that scream compromise, hypocrisy, and cover-up. And Gene isn't the only one raising eyebrows. Katt Williams has been one of the loudest voices blasting Jakes for years, calling out what he sees as a double life. Long before these latest headlines, Katt was already warning people not to buy into Jakes' carefully polished mask of holiness. According to Katt, there's a clear pattern in the entertainment world. Pastors and so-called spiritual leaders cozying up to powerful industry figures. But it's not about saving souls, it's about money. influence, and access. And in Katt's eyes, TD Jakes fits that mold perfectly. He's hinted in interviews and even in his stand-up sets that the bishop's close ties to moguls, his presence at shady events, and his willingness to turn a blind eye to exploitation all point to something deeper. Katt has stressed that a true man of God would never blur those lines, especially not in spaces where predatory behavior allegedly runs rampant. Instead of rebuking it, Jakes looks like he's tolerating it, and that's what makes people question everything about his image. Jakes getting cozy in those circles says it all, and to Katt, that speaks volumes. What makes Katt's words cut so deep is that they echo exactly what Gene Deal's been shouting. Two men from completely different worlds are asking the same deadly question. How can a man who claims to be a beacon of truth and morality feel so comfortable in spaces dripping with sin and scandal? And here's the kicker. Why is it that Katt Williams, a comedian the media branded as crazy and paranoid, is starting to look more honest than one of the most powerful preachers in America? The conversation has shifted big time. This isn't just about a pastor quietly stepping down, it's about what he might be running from. Nique is already promising more revelations. Diddy is drowning in lawsuits, and Jakes' sudden exit lines up way too neatly with all of it. The streets are connecting dots faster than churchgoers trading gossip in the pews.
You've been to these parties, right?
Oh, yeah. I was there when he was doing the white parties in the Hamptons and the whole 9 yards, so I know what goes on at the parties. If, they probably got a little bit more freakier, as time went on, because they got to the point whereas that they didn't even care. It used to be secretly, where people used to go to, separate rooms and different rooms, and they wasn't doing that out in the public, but now they don't care. Men kissing men and all this other that's just crazy.
So why do you think he was going to these parties?
I think that he's going to the Diddy parties, bruh. If he's going, we know he's going to the Diddy parties, and I know that it's, I know what usually happens at the Diddy party, or what we told us happened at the Diddy party.
Something much bigger is bubbling. And if Nique is right, the receipts will blow it wide open. This is where things really start heating up. What used to be quiet whispers in the background has now exploded into full-blown conversations, and the gossip is turning into hard talk. Nique, who has made it clear she fears no one in this industry, is flat out claiming that Bishop Jakes didn't step down by choice. According to her, he saw a bomb about to go off and jumped off the stage before it could blow in his face. And what kind of bomb are we talking about? The kind Diddy has allegedly been sitting on for years. Nique says Diddy never partied just for fun. Every night was about collecting evidence, screenshots, recordings, clips from those infamous gatherings that people whisper about but rarely speak on. She claims Diddy kept it all, not as memories but as leverage. Ammo he could use whenever he needed control. And now, with lawsuits stacking and his empire crumbling, the fear is that some of those files might finally spill into the public eye. If that's true, Bishop Jakes' name could be sitting right there in those archives. That's not just embarrassing, that's reputation-ending power. Think about it. Bishop Jakes has spent decades polishing his image as the father figure of modern Black spirituality. His sermons get clipped into viral moments, his books have sold by the millions, his conferences pack out arenas like rock concerts, and his brand stretches from the church pews all the way to Hollywood sets. The last thing a man with that kind of influence and money wants is to have his name mentioned in the same breath as lawsuits, freak parties, or federal investigations. But then Gene Deal entered the conversation. And this isn't some outsider throwing shade. Gene was Diddy's bodyguard, the man standing at the doors of those infamous parties. He's not speaking in theory. He's speaking as someone who checked IDs, watched who walked in, who stayed, and what they were doing. And Gene is saying flat out that Bishop Jakes wasn't just showing face at Diddy's gatherings, he was participating. That changes everything. Because it's one thing to pose for a handshake and dip out. It's another to be tangled up in what those parties were really about. The timing of all this has people buzzing nonstop. Jakes quietly steps down, and within days, Diddy gets slammed with more legal fire. Old clips of the Bishop partying start flooding timelines. Monique begins dropping cryptic hints, and then Jakes himself makes a statement that only left folks more uneasy. Instead of delivering a firm denial, he leaned into talk about grace and forgiveness. He told his flock that even if it were true, the blood of Christ would cover it. Then he added he had nothing to repent for in this matter. That strange, halfway response had people scratching their heads. Because if nothing ever happened, why even bring up forgiveness at all? To many, it sounded like a man bracing for the worst, praying the storm would blow over without swallowing him whole. And we can't forget, TD Jakes isn't just a pastor, he's a brand, a corporation, a global movement. His name is stamped on best-selling books, major film projects, conferences, merchandise, and international ministries. That name generates power, money, and credibility. But one undeniable crack, one explosive piece of evidence, and the entire empire could crumble overnight. Everyone in Jakes' circle knows what time it is, and his team knows it too. And he knows it. That's why his exit had to look polished and perfectly controlled. No messy back and forth with the press, no direct mention of Diddy, just a smooth and quiet step into the shadows before the spotlight burned too hot. But the problem is, the fire isn't across the street anymore. It's creeping closer every single day.
Happy birthday is tomorrow! His wife's birthday is tomorrow! Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday is tomorrow! His wife's birthday is tomorrow! Happy birthday!
The internet has turned into a full-blown crime scene unit. People are digging up old interviews, pulling screenshots of Instagram posts, cross-checking guest lists from past events, and replaying old clips frame by frame like detectives hunting for evidence. And the closer we get to Diddy's day in court, the louder this storm gets, because the case stopped being about just Diddy a long time ago. It's about every single person tied to him, anyone who showed up, anyone who stayed quiet, anyone who could appear in those rumored files. When one name falls, the rest start tumbling like dominoes. And that's why so many people are side-eyeing Jakes' sudden retirement. To them, it doesn't look like rest. It looks like a man sneaking out the back door before the flood crashes straight through his house. What started as a quiet church announcement has spiraled into something way bigger. Pews are buzzing, timelines are spinning, and even longtime supporters are giving Jakes the side eye. The timing feels way too perfect. He steps down just as Diddy's legal firestorm explodes. That doesn't look like coincidence. It looks like a script ripped straight out of a movie. Jake spent decades carefully building his reputation, a spiritual leader, a father figure, a global brand stretching from sermons to best-selling books to Hollywood productions. And that's why even the faintest connection to Diddy's chaos is enough to rattle the entire empire. Now, with Gene Deal speaking out, the picture only gets darker. Gene isn't some outsider tossing rumors. He was there. He worked security, stood at those doors, and watched exactly who came in, who stayed, and what went down once the cameras stopped rolling. And Gene isn't holding back. He's flat out saying Jakes wasn't just showing face at Diddy's gatherings, he was involved. That flips the whole conversation upside down, because just being in the room is one thing, but being involved? That's a whole different story. Participation is another story entirely, and that's where things get messy. Jakes' own response only poured gasoline on the fire. When pressed, he didn't give a firm denial. Instead, he slipped into a sermon about grace and forgiveness, declaring the blood of Christ covers all, and insisting he had nothing to repent for. But to many, that sounded like a contradiction. If nothing happened, why even bring up forgiveness? Why sound like a man preparing for judgment? That strange half-confession rattled people more than silence ever could, and it's exactly why the public is restless right now. The contradiction is just too loud to ignore. Old clips of Jake smiling and mingling at Diddy's birthday bash are now circulating right next to his sermons about sin and redemption. Fans are staring at those two images side by side, asking which one is real. Was he truly the disciplined preacher of faith and morals? Or was that just branding masking another lifestyle altogether? Even the media outlets reaching out for answers are getting nothing but carefully scripted replies, and that only makes the whispers louder.
What is that black to that black man. So no, I was not blackballed. I was whiteballed by some black who had no balls. Thank you, Mr. Lee Daniels. Thank you, Mr. Tyler Perry. Thank you, Miss Oprah Winfrey. No, baby, I wasn't blackballed. I had no balls. And see, I know they like to say, Monique, you talk to mother. It would kill me not to say it. It would kill me not to say you are not paying me equally. You are not treating me fairly. So y'all can suck if I had one.
Jakes' team kept insisting it was all just business. They swore it was a brief stop, nothing more. But to most people, it sounded like smoke and mirrors. Because why that party? Why that man? Why walk into a room known for chaos when your entire ministry preaches against it? That's not a slip in judgment, that's a calculated choice. And the internet isn't buying the idea that someone as polished and media savvy as TD Jakes somehow stumbled into that scene by accident. And Jakes isn't standing alone in the spotlight. Tyler Perry's name has been circling too. For years, Perry has been celebrated as the self-made mogul who built his own lane when Hollywood refused to let him in. But behind the glossy headlines and billion-dollar studios, a very different story has been bubbling under the surface. Former collaborators, writers, and actors have whispered about a pattern of mistreatment and control that rarely breaks into the mainstream. Perry has been accused of draining the people around him for everything they've got, and then discarding them the second they demand fair treatment. The controversy with his writers is the clearest example. When the team behind one of his biggest shows pushed for proper union contracts, instead of meeting them halfway, Perry allegedly showed them the door. These were the very creatives who helped build Tyler Perry's empire, pumping out hundreds of episodes that made him millions. But the moment money and credit came to the table, they were cut loose. Some of those writers later spoke out, calling Perry's move a straight slap in the face. And the smoke didn't stop there. Cast members from his productions have quietly hinted that working under Perry often feels more like surviving than thriving. Behind the glossy success, stories circulate about brutal hours, zero space for collaboration, and a culture where questioning the system gets you punished. On the outside, Perry parades himself as the champion of Black storytelling, a symbol of opportunity and independence. But behind the curtain, that shine turns darker and colder. Monique's decision to call him out only poured gasoline on a fire already smoldering. What once looked like a handful of bitter complaints has grown into a mountain of evidence pointing to a pattern in how Perry does business. The same man praised for breaking barriers might also be the one slamming doors on anyone bold enough to challenge him. Let's get into Tyler Perry's long history of union battles, because the drama didn't end with his writers back in 2015. The tension boiled over when two major actor unions, SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity, straight up banned their members from working on Perry's play Medea on the Run. Why? Because Perry and his production company flat out refused to sign union contracts. That's not a slap on the wrist. That's two of the biggest unions in Hollywood saying, enough is enough. This wasn't just Perry cutting corners, it was him cutting people out of protections, benefits, and fair treatment, all in the name of bigger profits. And if you think this was just a paperwork squabble, the stories from his sets tell a darker tale. Actor and voice coach Brandon Jay, who worked on Perry's Meet the Browns, went viral on TikTok after revealing what it was really like behind the curtain. According to Jay, filming even a single episode with Perry felt like running a marathon compared to anywhere else. He described the chaos of last-minute rewrites. Perry would scrap entire scripts overnight and hand actors brand new lines on the spot. Forget weeks of prep and rehearsals that other productions allow. On Perry's sets, it was pure chaos. On Perry's sets, the pressure was relentless. He demanded pages and pages of new material learned in just hours. And if you couldn't keep up, the rumor was he wouldn't think twice about firing you on the spot. But here's where things got even wilder. Brandon Jay auditioned for what seemed like a straightforward role, a bullied high school student. Nothing unusual, until Perry suddenly decided the script wasn't working. Out of nowhere, Jay's character was rewritten as gay and secretly crushing on the very bully tormenting him. Jay admitted he wasn't prepared for that twist. He immediately called his agent, who flat out told him he didn't have to accept the role if it made him uncomfortable. But Perry wasn't offering conversation, input, or compromise. He was dictating exactly how he wanted it done, no matter what the actor originally signed up for. In the end, Jay went through with the role, but his story cracked open something bigger, exposing how Perry's sets weren't about collaboration. They were about control.
So we literally run the entire episode for him, and he hates it. Does that mean I have to learn a whole new script? Yes, that's what it means. Mr. Perry, on the spot, starts rewriting the entire script, and he's feeding me the lines to say, and the director is kind of standing on the side like, you better do it, because if not, they will fire you. Here is where the shoe hit the fan. So in the middle of Mr. Perry changing up the scenes, he says, you know, I want Jeffrey to be gay, and he has a crush on his bully. That's not what I auditioned for. What?
Brandon Jay wasn't just talking about long hours or rough conditions. He was pointing straight at a culture of control, where Perry could flip the script at any moment, both literally and figuratively. And behind the scenes, even darker whispers started to surface. Stories about young Black men on Perry's payroll being expected to show up whenever he called, no matter the circumstances. To some, it sounded less like a professional workplace and more like a one-man kingdom, where nobody dared question the ruler. That's a far cry from the image Perry pushes in interviews or at red carpet premieres. To the world, he's the mogul who beat the odds, the man who gave jobs to thousands, the symbol of independence and power. But these insider stories paint a completely different picture, one of union standoffs, actor exploitation, and blurred lines of power that leave people uneasy. And the more former insiders speak up, the harder it is to ignore the cracks in Perry's empire, an empire that may be built on shaky, uncomfortable ground. And the buzz just got louder, especially after actor Christian Keyes dropped a tearful Instagram video that had fans questioning everything. In that emotional video, Christian Keyes revealed he'd been targeted by a powerful industry figure who bragged about keeping multiple young Black men on his payroll. He didn't drop a name, but considering Keyes has worked with Tyler Perry for nearly 2 decades, from Diary of a Mad Black Woman to All the Queen's Men, the internet wasted no time speculating who he might be talking about. Keyes even claimed he secretly gathered evidence and handed it over to the police. Whether Perry is directly involved or not remains unclear, but the video poured gasoline on the growing fire, fueling even more questions about Perry's treatment of actors and the power he wields behind the scenes. And let's be real, this isn't the first time Perry has faced heat. He's been accused of abruptly firing writers, typecasting actors into stereotypes, and pushing damaging portrayals of Black women. Cultural critic Jamila Lemieux once wrote a blistering open letter slamming Perry's choice to dress up as Medea, arguing that mocking Black matriarchs for laughs stripped dignity from one of the most respected figures in the culture. Spike Lee didn't hold back. He blasted Perry's brand of comedy as coonery and buffoonery, warning it only reinforced tired, one-dimensional tropes. And then there's the colorism issue that fans and critics can't ignore. In Perry's world, darker-skinned men are often cast as villains or abusive partners, while lighter-skinned or white characters get framed as heroes and saviors. Even Chris Rock once cracked a biting joke, saying if Tupac were alive and cast in a Perry film, he'd probably end up playing the abusive dark-skinned boyfriend instead of the hero. It got laughs, but underneath the punchline was a very real frustration with how representation works in Perry's projects. This ties directly into a much bigger Hollywood problem, stretching back decades. From Hattie McDaniel being forced to sit segregated at the 1940 Oscars to the more recent #OscarsSoWhite backlash, the industry has a long history of sidelining Black talent or boxing them into harmful stereotypes. And now, despite his massive influence and success, Perry is being accused of doing the exact same thing inside his own empire, churning out stories where Black women are forced to suffer and Black men are trapped in toxic caricatures. Movies like A Fall from Grace and Acrimony sparked heated debates online. Some fans questioned why Perry so rarely shows Black women thriving, while others defended him, saying he's just reflecting real struggles. But many argue that Perry's iron grip over his productions and his refusal to collaborate with other Black writers and directors only keeps his content locked in the same tired patterns. Even Dave Chappelle once raised eyebrows at how often Black male actors are pushed into wearing dresses for laughs, pointing to a Hollywood trend of humiliating roles for quick checks. Perry, of course, built an empire off Madea, the character that launched his career and still fuels fiery debates about stereotypes, respectability, and exploitation in Black entertainment. So what's your take? Has Tyler Perry's empire helped elevate the culture, or has it been quietly recycling the same toxic tropes for profit? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you never miss when I drop the next big story. I post new videos every week exposing the secrets of your favorite celebrities. See you on the next one.